Good evening and welcome back to another episode of Red Tinted Glasses. We are live as ever on the Red Tinted Glasses YouTube channel, and delighted returning from his sick bed into the co-host seat tonight is Phil Mayer. Phil, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm feeling much better. Raring to go, Glenn.
Raring to go after, of course, the weekend's 0-0 draw against Dundee. God, this season really feels like it's petering out. Hopefully, we can raise your spirits ahead of course, the weekend's upcoming semi-final against Celtic. So, lots to discuss on the show, including, of course, the weekend result. We'll speak about the VAR statement that came out in light of the Livingston result. Jimmy Thelin looks set to be named as the new Aberdeen manager, not officially announced yet unless something happens during the next 45 minutes to an hour. So we'll discuss that as well, Phil. And also, we've got Player of the Year next Thursday, which we're both going to. So we'll maybe discuss that. So lots to chew over and lots to digest. We'll start with the VAR statement. Because we'll in chronicle order of the week. Easy enough for me to say. What did you make of the club's, what I felt was quite a measured response to the events of the Livingston game and the use of, or lack of, VAR in that game?
Yeah, no, I think it was obviously we all want the club just to come out and say, fuck the SFA and whatnot, but they're obviously never going to do that. So I think in terms of the club actually coming out and saying something, I think it was a good statement. Um, and I think it was balanced as well because by no means were they saying that we've not benefited from a couple of VAR decisions that haven't gone the way of our opponents.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's maybe the first step of a club not flying off the handle and complaining about VAR just sort of ruining their chances. It was kind of measured and sort of summed up, I think, how a lot of Scottish football's feeling with the VAR just not working for anybody really. So I was pleasantly surprised we actually did come out with something though.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. I think the way that the club approached it, for me, it felt like Cormac for once didn't have his paws all over a statement, and probably used Zoe Ogilvie very well in that statement. I thought it was worded well, and as you say, we didn't just attack the SFA. We acknowledged that we've benefited in some cases as well, and I totally agree. I think it summed up the feeling of not just us as a fan base, but you could see the reaction from other fans to the club statement, kind of summing up and agreeing that that's how they felt as well. We obviously saw this weekend that both the Fair City Unity of St Johnstone and Red Ultras, or UA Aberdeen as they're now known, in the Red Shed, both displaying end VAR banners. And I just wonder if we'll now start to see that more across the coming weeks throughout Scottish football as the kind of fan discontent towards VAR continues. And I think more so on the back of how classy, maybe you could say, our statement was, to then the response from the SFA, which very much felt don't back down, double down, changing their tune to Danny Mackay being the last man, being playing the Aberdeen players offside, making it Mikey Devlin, suddenly finding the lines. It just reeked of desperation to cover their tracks, didn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, like the first thing you're saying about the sort of fan discontent, I think that's probably the most powerful weapon, in my opinion. Scottish football tries to pitch itself as still being a game for the fans, unlike
Mm,
our sort of counterparts down in England. So I think it is a good time for your sort of main ultra groups at the various clubs to show a little bit of unity on that front, and then sort of have like a almost like a joint protest in a way. Maybe pick one match week where everybody has some sort of ban or whatever they want to do with
mm.
it. I think it's probably the strongest tool. And then, like you say, the SFA statement I just thought was just appalling, really. I mean, the whole thing has just been a farce. I mean, I kept on comparing it to the Scotland France game in the Six Nations.
Mm.
The referee had no clear evidence the ball was grounded, despite having it, but still, he had no clear evidence, in his opinion, that the ball was grounded, so he kept with the on-field decision. And if the
Mm.
Hawkeye wasn't working for VAR, in my opinion, it should be the case of you've got no clear evidence. You're going to have to stick with what you've done on field. Doesn't matter if he's 10 yards offside or half an inch offside. You're just going to have to roll with it. So yeah, for the SFA to come out and double down, and then like you say, the whole farce with the lines as well, which I couldn't even make any sense of when I was trying to look at the image. It was just a shambles, really.
And kind of final point is probably a relevant point. Obviously, you contrasting rugby union. I'm a big fan of rugby league, and similar when they use kind of TV reviews. The on-field referee, before he refers it to the TV umpire, if you want to call it, has to give an on-field decision, and then it's up to that TV match official to find enough evidence to either overrule or stick to that decision. And if they can't find enough, for example, if it's awarded a try and you're thinking it's not, if they can't find enough evidence to overrule it, then they must stick with the on-field decision. For the fact that we've got protocols that allow somebody in a van somewhere to just guess, because ultimately that is what has happened in that weekend draw to Livingston, was a guess. To be able to do that, they could even refer the referee to the monitor and say, look, this isn't working. This is what we're seeing. Are you happy just to stick with your on-field decision? Well, Scottish football, we always know that communication isn't the strongest, and it felt like that was the case once again. But I thought Peter Leven was also quite good in his press conference, saying, look, we can't go back and expect to be handed the 2 points. Didn't do enough to win the game. And I think that's what me and Jay discussed last week. But the fact that there were so many failings, and a lot of Scottish football fans will say, what did we expect when we got the pound shop version of VAR? Well, we're now seeing what we kind of paid for in the end.
Yeah, and I think Clarkson summed it up perfectly as well with his comments in the run up to the Dundee game about asking the referees to just do their job. And I think that's been a bugbear of mine since VARs came in, is it feels like the games are getting re-refereed and the referees don't have the conviction to make their decision anymore. You'll quite often see that. There's been the rare instance where we've spoken about before where I think it's been the likes of Kevin Clancy's maybe gone, no, do you know what, I'm backing my decision here when he's gone over at the monitor and I'm not overruling. And I think that's the issue now, is that the men in the middle who really are becoming more and more important, as sad as that is, are becoming more and more important in the outcome of games, aren't having the conviction to decide anything, which really just diminishes the league massively. It makes it a laughingstock.
Yeah, I think I only remember 2 decisions where the on-field decision has kind of been stuck with, in contradiction to maybe what VAR is offering. And as Pedro says, a lot of fans wanted VAR because of the refereeing decisions. It's not the VAR, it's the quality of refs and those individuals making the decisions that are hopeless. We could sit here till we're lose all our hair. Well, I've already done that, Phil. You're hiding your hair today, but you could see it both ways. It's just one of those things that unfortunately feels like it's here to stay unless we see a lot of fan discontent. I like that idea you mentioned about fan groups picking a weekend to protest about it. Could we see kind of the German football type where there was that mass protest where every game was disrupted by fans launching tennis balls onto the pitch? It could take something as more drastic as that than just a banner. Games actually being physically disrupted could be, but we'll see what comes of that. But we'll move on to on the pitch matters, Phil. And we discussed doing something different for this last night when we were speaking about recording the episode tonight, because look, I appreciate everyone that stuck with the podcast over the most recent weeks, because let's be honest, the product on the pitch hasn't exactly been amazing. Yes, results are finally going in a bit better direction, but performances have left a lot to be desired. So it feels like we're regurgitating the same content week in, week out. So I've tried to come up with something a little bit different. And Phil, we're going to speak about probably the 5 biggest talking points that we've felt from the weekend's draw against Dundee. And obviously there's going to be those of you tuning into the episode tonight. So if we see some comments, we might pick up them and comment on them. But the first one I'm going to speak about, Phil, is of course the team news. There was 2 changes to the starting lineup. Angus MacDonald coming in to replace Richard Jensen, and Duke starting in place of Junior Hoylett. But for me, the biggest talking point was Graham Shinney starting the game, but probably more so getting 90 minutes, given, of course, he is suspended for the weekend's game against Celtic in the Scottish Cup semi-final. Were you surprised at the 2 changes, or more so how much Shinney played at the weekend?
I would say I was more surprised at the fact that Shinney got the full 90. I think Duke coming in and Angus coming in wasn't really much of a shock. Hoylett's had a fair string of games where he's done all right, but I think we've got to remember, he's getting on a little bit. He wasn't up to full sharpness when he came in. It could well have just been, tired legs or whatnot. And like we'll discuss later on as well. Duke, played well, so there's no complaints there. And Angus as well. I was surprised he came in for Jensen. I think Gartman's been the one more under fire as of late, so I was surprised to see him stay in the team. And early on in the game, it was looking a bit wobbly, but
you felt early on in the game as well that you mentioned Gartenman. It felt the crowd were very on his back early doors, again, letting the ball bounce or taking his time to deal with things. You could feel that tension in the crowd from an Aberdeen perspective towards Gartenman in particular.
Yeah, no, I think he definitely grew into the game a little bit. I think it was a little bit frustrating at times where it was scuffed clearances or, taking 20 touches just to then turn around and play it back to Roos and whatnot. But he definitely grew in. But no, I think Shinnie getting the full 90, I was surprised about just for the magnitude of the game that's coming up. But as well, I mean, the two in midfield, Barron and Shinnie, for me, just weren't doing anything really to influence what was going on. So I was more surprised we did try and change it and, try and get a little bit more creativity in there early on.
Yeah, and I think it was a strange flow to the first half and probably really the game in general because it felt quite stop-start. Of course, Nick Walsh very card happy in the first half, more so to the Dundee back line. Again, we're going to come on to Duke's performance. It felt like he almost single-handedly got that Dundee back line on bookings. But obviously, we're speaking about Graham Shinnie more specifically here. Graham picking up a booking for his first foul in the game. And now a lot of people, I didn't really kind of clock it at the time. You might have had a better view at the game. You see it more clearly on Sports Scene. People feeling Tony Doherty did a lot to get Graham booked first off. But for me, again, given what Nick Walsh was handing out cards for, it's a poor free kick to give away in the middle of the pitch. It's a clear pool. I actually do think that Duke was fouled about 10 seconds prior. We didn't get that or any subsequent advantage. So potentially just a bit of frustration there for Graham, but a silly booking to put yourself on, really.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've got no doubts that Doherty probably helped a little bit. I mean, he was going taunt on the sideline every single time one of the Dundee players got booked. And, like you say, it was probably quite rightly with the flow that Walsh was taking with penalising players that he was going to get booked for that. I mean, he pulled him back when he went past him. You really can't have any complaints. I'm pretty sure that was effectively what the first three Dundee bookings were for, and I'm pretty sure it was all their first foul as well.
Yeah.
So for someone as experienced as Shinnie, I don't think he can really complain much about it. And like I say, it was just a daft free kick because although Dundee were playing some nice football, that's typically what they want. Is a free kick about that area. They can get the likes of McGee and Donnelly and stuff forward and ping one in and try and cause some problems. You've seen it every quarter they took. They just mobbed Roos out. So yeah, I don't think he can have any complaints about that booking. I think his second one, we'll come on to that. There was a lot of discourse about that on Twitter. I thought it was daft from the South Stand. I thought it was really stupid. But
well, I'm glad you said that because I think when you're on a booking, you're the captain of the team. I was more raging at him because I thought it was absolutely senseless and absolutely needless as well. Obviously, you're calling it stupid. The reaction on Twitter seemed to be that the reaction of Malachi, the Dundee player, Malachi Boateng, kind of influenced the decision. My first reaction watching it on Sports Scene, I could see that point of view, but Shinnie charges in, his foot studs up. Obviously, he's trying to win the ball, but it's just really poor on a booking. And again, going back to that point from the first half where Nick Walsh was so card happy, you're giving a referee a decision to make, and it's a fairly easy decision. If it was roles reversed, you'd be screaming for a yellow card as well.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, folk can say the boy made the most of it. Unfortunately, that's modern football. Like that, we've seen that for the past 15 years, and it's not going to change unless they start red carding people for diving. Like it's never going to change. from the South Stand, I mean, I know that he's not made the greatest deal. You know, he's not smacked them or anything. But from the South Stand, when you're looking at it, he's came he's came in at speed.
Hmm.
He's came in brash. The boys hit the deck. Walsh is always going to book him. You know,
Yeah,
because it's in a way you can almost argue it's that sort of classic shitty thing of games going dreadful. If I hit somebody, that's fine. Like, you know, it
that
shows the passion, which, you know, it's maybe not as much as a game these days, but you know, we could sort of. I mean, I definitely made a lot of those statements at the start of the season when it looked like his legs were going. It was just a case of
mm,
he thumps the badge and snaps a few people, and therefore he's devoid of any criticism. But no, I just again, it comes back to the experience thing. He knows the game that's coming up at the weekend. You know, he knows how dodgy that could have put us. I mean, even for losing, I know Dundee were just corner flagging it regardless, but
yeah,
you know, you're then spending the last couple of minutes under the cosh down a man.
yeah.
Um, it was just, yeah, it was just silly, really, really silly.
That was, to be honest, that was my biggest frustration. Was it felt like is kind of the stuff you've described there, Shinnie being a headless chicken once again, and just trying to do something, probably as you say, to rally the crowd and you know show that passion that we all kind of know and expect from Graham himself. He got it wrong, and as soon as the free kick was given and Nick started going to the pocket, I was like, that's enough for me. I'm leaving. So you know, kind of didn't really clock the reaction of the players or kind of see out the final minutes. I was just fed up because for me, he's supposed to be the captain, supposed to be the leader. You know, going back to Neil Warnock, yes, I'm going to mention him briefly, but you know, he said that Graham Shinnie was the only leader he could identify in that team. For me, that wasn't really very leadery of Graham
Yeah,
Shinnie.
and it
Um,
just leaves us at such an awkward position for Saturday now because
well, it doesn't really
you're
for
either gonna,
Saturday because he was already suspended anyway. It's
well,
more that
true.
the weekend after, you know, touch wood, like we don't pick up any injuries, but you're again, your captain, your leader, you're missing him from the center of your midfield going into your first bottom six game, and whoever, of course, that may be, because heaven forbid, the SPFL upset two clubs in this league. We have to wait until Dundee Rangers gets played before finding out our fixtures. So stay tuned until the next episode before we react to that. Um, yeah, I just feel it was absolutely needless from Graham Shinnie. Both really bookings were needless, and he's paid the price, but he's got an extended 2 week break.
Yeah, I think that tends to be the story of Shinnie's bookings. I find though, I mean, I think I've very rarely seen Shinnie get booked where I go, all right, I'll take that. You'll get the occasional one that stops a counter, but 9 times out of 10, you're just kind of going, why have you made that challenge? You've got two folk covering. You had no reason to wipe him out, but hey ho, it's what it is.
Is what it is. Number two from the talking point, I've got Duke back to duking. Of course, we spoke about him coming back into the starting lineup in place of Junior Hoylett. And we probably saw flashes of the Duke of old in his direct running. I mean, we only really had two attempts in the second half. I thought he hit the post in the at the start of the second half, but I actually think it's a good save from McCracken. And then the header, there's not really much else he can do, gets on target at least. But we saw glimpses of what he can do in the direct running, caused that Dundee defence a lot of problems. We saw in the previous game against Celtic at Pataudry with Nawrocki in the centre back, how much he didn't enjoy Bojan Miovski kind of running at him and causing him problems. Do you think the performance that Duke put in this weekend has given him enough or given Leven enough thought to potentially start him at Hampden?
Yeah, no, I think he's got to. I think that direct. I mean, I say it all the time. Directness and width causes issues, and I think it was frustrating that we maybe didn't do it as much after the first couple of bookings as I would have hoped.
Hmm.
You know, because I mean, then effectively the entire right hand side of that Dundee defence was walking a tight line, and if Duke just ran them into the box, they're not going to be able to make a challenge, or if they do, and they get it wrong, they're off.
Hmm.
So I think that's something we've got to take into the Celtic game because I mean they play quite a high line still. If we can get in behind, and again, if we can get like Alistair Johnson or Nawrocki or whoever's going to be starting at centre half on Saturday, if we can get them on an early booking, and then just keep on sort of piling that pressure down that side, I think you know it's probably one of our better chances of producing something. I think you know when Duke was taking on his man, it really was our best chance of bringing something out the game.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think, like you, I was kind of disappointed, if not surprised, that we didn't kind of exploit the right hand side, and then even Costello when he got booked down the left, we didn't kind of utilize, taking the ball past him or try to like draw that foul that could have led to a second booking. Um, so for me, that was a frustration. And then once again, similarly to the last time Dundee came to Tawdry, we allowed Tony Doherty to change it. He makes the change in midfield again at half time, and again Dundee control large parts of the second half, and that kind of takes us on to point three of the talking points from the weekend's draw against Dundee. Was something that we kind of first raised a couple of episodes again, Phil, and then kind of went into a little bit with Jay last week, is the lack of creativity in this team at this present moment, and the lack of chances being created. We're obviously going to come on to the back end of the team in a minute, but we're going to speak about the front end, because it's another game without goals and really a lack of chances being created. And this has got to be a worry when you're coming up against a Celtic side in a Scottish Cup semi-final next weekend.
Yeah, because you've got to rely on moments of magic against them, and that's not trying to big them up too much, but they are the best team in the country. It's the same as if people go to the likes of City. You're relying on moments of magic from your creative players, and we just didn't have enough of that against Dundee. It's we've got a lack of creativity, but we've not got a lack of creative players, which is why it's so frustrating. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like where maybe like a Livingston where you've maybe got the likes of Newblake can occasionally pull something out the bag. We've got Clarkson, McGrath, Barron, Duke, Miovski. We've got options there who can change games, and I really don't. I don't know what it is. Part of me thinks it's the gaps between the midfield and attack and the gaps between the midfield and defence. It's always too big, and we're always forced into these either long balls over the top, or we work it out wide. Nobody does anything. We then play it back to a fullback to swing into the box. Where we've really only got one target in there in Miovski, and it's just frustrating. And again, I don't know if it is a belief thing. I don't know if anyone's got the confidence to just try something. Take
Mm-hmm.
on their man, get a shot away. I've got no idea, but yeah, it's concerning. Not even just going into Saturday against Celtic. It's concerning going into our split fixtures, really, because it seems like the teams around us, have got the ability to create more than we do at the moment.
And I think we created opportunities in the first half, and I know Peter Leven was trying to take the positives from that first half performance, and we had a couple of opportunities, like I said, in the second. But it's that composure that seems to be really missing, and I guess that was exemplified by Leighton Clarkson's miss in the first half, where he really just sclaffs at it. And a first replay again on Sports Scene, I thought it maybe hit his standing leg, but he just takes a mad swipe at it. There was no kind of thought to take a touch. Similarly with Bojan Miovski, when he was put through one-on-one, he seemed to take an absolute age. And again, Sports Scene, I think it was Lee Miller, was discussing about whether he could have taken it on his right foot, but he very much choreographed that he was going to open up his body, take it on his stronger left foot, and Joe Shaughnessy gets back really well to make the block. But Bojan didn't have to make it obvious what he was going to do, and that obviously helps Joe get back in time to make the block. So it's frustrating that even when we're creating those opportunities that are very much few and far between right now, there's that lack of composure in the front line, and it's just hurting us right now, because these games are tight, these games are tense. But I suppose for us, the benefit right now is, of course, the defense is coming up solid. Just hopefully, a week's kind of reset and work on in training might benefit us, and it might just take a deflection. We saw Bojan get the own goal again against Ross County. We thought that might kick on his confidence. Not quite seen that, but again, the Leighton Clarkson opportunity, had that found the back of the net, that was maybe something that Leighton needed to get him going. Similarly, Duke, spoke last season about him being a confidence player, and that's certainly not there right now, because he's not been hitting the goal trail either. We just need a spark up front, and to not have an over reliance on our defence. obviously, as I said, despite them coming up trumps just now.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things where, is there the danger that it became a little bit of a one-trick pony in terms of this season? Have we relied too much on Miovski's goals that now
Mm.
the evidence is that now they've dried up or not scoring really.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's even like you say. I mean, even Miovski is sort of became a one-trick pony as of late. Like you say, you know what he's going to do. The ball's going to go into the right channel for him to chase down, so he can cut back onto his left foot and try and curl it. And I think everybody expects that just now. It's even at times it's similar with, like I say, when we get the ball out wide, like Duke and McGrath, it'll be run the byline, realise I'm
Mm.
getting nowhere, and play it back to a fullback. That everyone knows the ball's not coming into the box first time, so it gives everybody the opportunity to get back and set. So yeah, I'm hoping, in terms of everything, goals and the season, the Celtic game can be that turning point. I think if
No pressure.
well, exactly, in but the way they're playing just now, it's the slim chance, but the chance that we do pull off something against Celtic, it would probably kick us into a good bit of form going into the remainder of the split, and then in that case the final. Not to get too overconfident.
I'm glad you're bringing Callum levels of confidence into this podcast in his absence. But as I said, the defence is so far coming up trumps last two games, back-to-back clean sheets for the defence. I think I saw on Twitter someone say that those 2-0 draws that we've now had is our longest run of games without conceding since Barry Robson went 7 games without conceding, which just tells us how much of a defensive issue we've been having. David McLennan pointing out that something positive to say, at least we're not leaking goals at the moment. Angus MacDonald, on his return to the starting lineup, was awarded man of the match. Of course, there was a sublime block where Angus pretty much did the splits to prevent Lyle Cameron from scoring for Dundee. Now, Slobodan Rubezic, we kind of wondered if he would be back for the Dundee game. He didn't feature. I watched his interview on Red TV, and there seemed to be kind of hinting at an opportunity of the Celtic game. Peter Leven again pre-Dundee, hoping that Ruby would be available for this weekend against Celtic. But one thing I took from the interview of Rubezic was how much he's kind of been leaning on not only Bojan for support, but Angus MacDonald as well, saying he's speaking to Angus every day. Obviously, Angus himself having an injury at the start of the season. And it made me wonder, could potentially next season, of course, with Stefan Gartenmann only being on loan here, could we potentially see a centre-back lineup of Angus MacDonald and Slobodan Rubezic next season?
I don't think it's something I'd be opposed to. We're maybe at that point lacking a bit of speed potentially, which could be a concern. Obviously, Devlin and McKenzie can make up for that if we're sticking with the 4. But I think it would benefit Rubezic to have somebody like McDonald next to him, like you say, and speaking to him through his injury. It's probably no one better to speak to about adversity in football than Angus MacDonald, with what he's been through, not only his injuries at Aberdeen, but throughout his career. So I think it could be a really good mentor for Rubezic. And, MacDonald tends to be, even when Pollock was there, MacDonald tended to be the cool and calm one that wasn't flying in everywhere. He was sort of the calm head at the back, which Ruby probably needs, let's be honest. So no, I think it's someone really good for him to be next to in terms of going forward.
Yeah, and I guess, as much as we're going to praise the defence and another clean sheet, which again builds confidence ahead of the weekend in the back 4 and, of course, Kyle Roos, Paul Donaldson does mention that Dundee were really poor at finishing. They had a few chances that they should have scored, obviously covering that with Lyle Cameron. He also went on to hit the bar as well. But look, if teams don't take their chances, we can't discount that, but we've still got to deal with what's in front of us. And Angus MacDonald coming out in his post-match conferences and says there might not be a lot of positives to take from the game, but one positive he and the rest of the defence will take is, of course, that they did keep another clean sheet and they can use that to build on. And I think going back to the point that David McLennan made about, that we're not conceding sloppy goals, does give me confidence going into the weekend and the run-in for those of a mind that we're potentially still in trouble. For me, I'm pretty confident that we're not in trouble. But the fact that we've kind of stumbled upon a working defence now eases that fear, because previous times, we were just giving away cheap goals. The defence looked unsure. I think I actually saw it's only one goal conceded in our last four as well. So a real kind of turnaround, and a good job by not only the defence but Peter Leven for whatever he's done to kind of build that confidence into them as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the age old adage of, defence tends to win you leagues. Not that we're doing that just now, but it's the building block you've really got to build a squad from, and it obviously looks like we're going into a rebuild again next season most likely. So if we can have those building blocks in place defensively and really build our team, because I mean, like I say, that's the main area that we need to really work on. Goals will come if we manage to retain the quality of Miovski, which who knows where he's going to be in the summer, but if you can retain the quality of Miovski and add a couple extra pieces around him, keeping the clean sheets is the main thing, and the goals will come.
Yeah, no, definitely. And final talking point from the weekend. It's not really Aberdeen related, but seemed to rile up the celebration police, because some of our support felt that Dundee's celebrations were a bit over the top. Of course, securing their top six status and remaining in the hunt for European football, something technically we are, of course, through the Scottish Cup. But for me, I don't begrudge them anything. I thought they played very well throughout the game on Saturday. I mentioned Paul's comment about them, creating loads of chances but poor finishing let them down. And who can blame them for celebrating when they've still got that opportunity to achieve European football, if their pitch can obviously hold up between now and the end of the season. But what a job Tony Doherty and that team have done. I was listening to Joe Shaughnessy today saying when he came in for pre-season, there was only 12 players there. They've been getting it tight from the Scottish media this week, obviously with the whole pitch fiasco. So I'm sure it was a little bit of extra motivation this weekend to get up a lot of people, much similar to ourselves. And for those that are saying that they were over-celebrating, as I said to you before we came live, Phil, I remember back in the day when I'm pretty sure Chris Maguire or Paul Hartley scored from the byline in front of the RDS against Falkirk to secure us a top six place, and the place going absolutely crazy. So, we're not ones to, be in a position to slag anybody off for over celebrating that right now, because we would be doing the exact same if the shoe was on the other foot had we had that opportunity this season.
Yeah, no, all power to Dundee. I mean, they brought a good support up. They were noisy enough. And do you know what? Fair play. I mean, they've come out from the Championship. They've outperformed ourselves and Hibs, which was probably never expected on their season coming up. The future is probably exciting for a lot of those fans. It's they've got a lot of good young players in that team. The chance of Europe as well. So no, I don't begrudge them at all. Really, with the season we've had, I would have been celebrating that if we even blooming came seventh, to tell you the truth.
And then they stopped chucking in some silly late goals as well. They'd have probably secured top six a lot more comfortably than having to rely on Motherwell scoring a 94th minute winner. But enjoy it, and hopefully your pitch stands up to the rest of the season. We'll hopefully give you a better battle for the top six next season. Moving on to the managerial situation, Phil, it's been widely rumoured across the weekend that Jimmy Thelin, or Jimmy Thelin, if you want to be one of those people that pronounce things properly, not looking at anybody in particular, that he is set to become the Aberdeen manager, potentially looking towards the 1st of June. No official announcement yet. I know Elfsborg are actually playing tonight. I didn't actually think to check their score before we came live. Obviously, when that announcement is official, we'll do a proper episode. We'll get Callum on for it because, as I said, he was the first person that I remember mentioning that name in connection. I know Lee McDonald did a thread on Twitter and kind of mentioned his name as well, but Callum was the first person I remember mentioning the name. What does the potential or upcoming appointment of Jimmy Thelin mean to you, and how excited would you be by that appointment?
I would be very excited by that appointment. I think it gives us something different. from all the various things that have been bandied around the media and Twitter and stuff about style of play and this, that, and the next thing. It's looks like it's going to be a 4-3-3, which would suit me happily. I'm pretty sure I've been asking for a 4-3-3 since the start of the season. Get a little bit of width, get a little bit of creativity up front. Meaningful possession as well from the looks of things, which I'm quite looking forward to, instead of just holding 74% of the ball for the sake of a 0-0. It's a bit pointless. So no, I think, and his track record as well of sort of rebuilding teams obviously came into the Elfsborg and really sort of turned them round. So in our current predicament, it's a sort of manager we're really needing. I'm hoping he'll get the time. Obviously, he does need to somewhat hit the ground running, just to sort of keep people off his back. But I'm hoping he gets the time from above, as well as the sort of backing as well to sort of work his way, really.
I like how you say, I hope he gets the timing from those above. I think he's got to be more worried about getting the timing from those in the stands rather than above.
That's true.
It's more so by those that are unconvinced by an appointment of a foreign manager, when they would rather see a tried and tested manager from these islands. I'm too young to remember Ebby's appointment, but certainly a guy at work said to me that he feels this appointment kind of echoes Ebby's appointment when we went through a string of managers, and then he was doing well at Bromby, came in and kind of was just getting to the point where he looked to be turning things around, but we got sacked. Obviously, got us to 2 cup finals in the 2000 season as well. But like, I think me and you are of that kind of feeling that we're excited by this. I'm just glad Johnny Main's not here, because of course the last time me and you got excited about a manager coming in was Neil Warnock, and look how badly that turned out. So
we've all got our flaws, Glenn. We've all got our flaws.
Hey, we can't get it right every time, can we, Phil? But I think the point of patience and time is absolutely key. And I think you just need to look at his time at Elfsborg, when he's taken about 18 months to kind of get his ideas across. Now, reading a couple of things on social media, Vitamin T has done a couple of good threads on Jimmy, and and so did John Walker, who was the analysis for I can't believe I mentioned him on this episode, but Darvel, and was probably part of the masterminding in knocking us out that Scottish Cup game. And both of them identified that he's a keen long ball player. And one thing I noticed at the game on Dundee was we quite tried to do long diagonals and was fucking useless at them. So he's definitely got his work cut out when he comes in, if, of course, that still gets done.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it comes back to the backing. Cormac's kind of got to let Thelin get his ideas across. The players that will work for him, if long diagonals is what he's wanting to do, he's going to need ball playing centre backs, very confident ball playing centre backs, and he's going to need very quick wingers as well. Duke stays, he could be one. Vinny back, there's another option, but we're obviously going to be wanting to probably sign, quality and also players that will work for him. I've read a lot as well that the team's going to have to be fit, which, at times this season it has not looked it.
Well, I heard that Barry Robson was going to make us the fittest team.
Well, yeah, we also heard 24 shots against Hack, and I think we've maybe mustered up that much shots over about 10 games.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think he's going to have to be able to get the players that'll fit his system. I think we've spoken about before, where we've sort of said, square pegs for round holes and whatnot. Fitting players in where really they're not going to work for the sake of trying to appease a certain style of play or a certain formation and whatnot. I think we really need to get it right.
No, totally. And as you mentioned, obviously Vinny coming back, scoring from just inside the opposition half on the weekend there. Ryan Duncan obviously getting his first chance in a long time. Fucking hell, talk about not taking your chance, Ryan. Fuck me. We'll see what kind of opportunities afforded to players over the course of the summer, and who gets what in terms of opportunity. obviously, again, regarding him coming in, there's talk of him taking his own backroom staff, potentially seeing the end of Craig Sampson and his beloved iPad. But Peter leaving, being in the background under Barry Robson and others, would you be opposed to Peter staying in some format in the coaching staff if obviously Jimmy wanted him as part of that? Or do you think we need a total refresh of the coaching staff as well and total new ideas? Where do you stand on that?
No, I think Peter's done enough to merit staying. He's done well in his spells as in caretaker. I think arguably as well the whole reason Samson stayed was for continuity. And I think out of the two of them, Leaving should really be that continuity man if they're wanting to keep somebody that knows a little bit about the squad already. So no, I would like to see him stay as a coach. I think he speaks well. He's done well since he's came in. He's kind of taken the reins when nobody in their right mind would probably want to take them. So no, I think in some way you could argue that's maybe rewarding him, but I think he's earned it.
Yeah, and I get that some people will be saying, there's no place for sentimentality at this stage, but I think you look at his coaching career. I think he was part of a league-winning side over in Belarus as well, but he'll be that kind of transition of someone that knows the players and can maybe advise. But I think someone replied saying he could be potentially the person that players that are unhappy with run to, and it causes a bit of divide. You can look at it both ways. Just interesting to hear what your thoughts are on it. Personally, I think it would be shrewd to keep him as part of the coaching staff. And look, he's by all accounts seems happy to stay if, of course, offered the opportunity. But I think when you're potentially facing losing your job, of course, you're going to be happy to stick around if you're afforded the opportunity. So we'll see what comes out. Of course, there was supposed to be a meeting with the senior staff. This is live on Monday, so those catching up later in the week might already have an announcement. You might have a couple of episodes you're tuning into. Of course, if we have to react to that news that comes out this week. Again, the rumor is that he's going to be starting on the 1st of June. I think there's a break in the Swedish season between the 1st of June and a future game. I'm not sure the exact date, but I would like to have seen him kind of come in and maybe be able to assess the squad between now and the end of the season. But if we have to wait till the 1st of June to get the right man for the job, then just so be it. I'm sure he'll be watching plenty of tapes on performances between now and then. Moving on then to the weekend's semi-final, Phil. Celtic await at Hampden. It's not a ground that we've got a great record against them. And again, seeing kind of some discussions on social media that Celtic fans probably feeling a bit more confident in this game now, given that they feel they've turned a small corner. Do you still kind of retain any sort of confidence in this tie when it was first drawn that I maybe had that thinking that we had a chance to win this game?
Yeah, somewhat. You've always got to have a little bit. At the end of the day, it's football. We saw it the other day with, bottle job Sunday between Rangers and Arsenal and Liverpool, and all the big teams dropping points. Across not even just UK but in Europe as well. And Celtic didn't get off to the greatest start against St Mirren by all accounts. They were kind of sluggish, which again they've got a track record for this season, being really slow off the mark, which is why I think we've really got to try and take the game to them off the bat. So no, it's going to be tough. Everyone knows it's going to be tough. We're typically rotten against Celtic and we're typically rotten at Hampden, so it's not going to be an easy ask. But yeah, I think the main thing is, and we always say it when we're playing one of the Glasgow teams, is we just need to go in and not show any fear. At the end of the day, it's 11 on 11. Doesn't matter who you're playing.
Well, showing no fear is one thing, but actually, keeping it tight is also another as well. We spoke about Duke and his opportunity, maybe kind of trial to start the game at the weekend. Pedro73 said a bit earlier in the episode that he would look at Hoylett and Duke starting, going with a 4-3-3, big park, and trying to run at them. Obviously you mentioned Alistair Johnson, Navrocki. I really don't think Greg Taylor's up to much, of course, a left back. So I would almost be tempted to put Duke on Greg Taylor. Of course, as you mentioned, Celtic not kind of getting off to the best start in that game against St Mirren last time out, but Alistair Johnson kind of really came into his own in the second half, grabbing a couple of assists. So probably from an attacking point of view, a player that we might have to watch out for. But again, for those that watch the Old Firm, will see how susceptible he is to picking up a booking and making kind of a rash challenge. I do think if we kind of studied that game, as you mentioned, the St Mirren Celtic game, St Mirren did certainly try in that first half to balls over the top, use the space in behind to run at. For me, Hoylett doesn't exactly possess the levels of pace that Duke or Miovski might have. Now, someone that follows the podcast, Northern Lights underscore on Twitter, sent us his kind of hope for a team lineup. Now, I'm going to read through this because I didn't save it, so I can't show anybody that is even watching. So he's gone with Roos in goals, a back four of Jack McKenzie, Gartenman, McDonald, and Devlin. But in the middle, of course, without suspended Graham Shinnie, he's gone for Killian Phillips, of course, a player that was chosen the first time around when Leven lined up against Celtic. So he's gone for a centre midfield pairing of Phillips and Barron, with Clarkson playing in front of them, and then using McGrath and Duke out wide, supporting Miovski in that kind of 4-3-3 option. But you've got Devlin and McKenzie, of course, that can play fullbacks. Phillips, for me, is an interesting one and an interesting choice, but I see where he's coming from, given the fact that he played last time out. Dante Polvares seems to be the go-to off the subs bench. Where do you think Leven goes in this game? Because I think the feeling that I get from reading the thread that Northern Lights goes with, he's looking from Killian to just kind of run amok in that midfield, be that big bastard that just takes bodies effectively.
Yeah, and I think that's the issue that Shinnie's suspension has really caused, is we don't really have that out and out sort of sweeper in front of the back four that Shinnie quite often is. Whether Phillips would work as an actual central midfielder, I think he's probably more used to playing either in the 10 or off the wing. Whether he maybe starts him on the wing and we see Barron and Clarkson playing in that sort of deeper role together. A lot of word of that being maybe too deep for Clarkson, but again, it's this sort of idea of creativity. Do we want as much creative players off the bat, or do we save the likes of McGrath or Clarkson, to come off the bench and try and pull the strings as legs get more tired?
Well, that was kind of, I wondered as well, is, Leighton Clarkson's been a player that's kind of maybe split opinion in recent weeks, just down to the level of performances that some people feel he's been putting in. Those will know who we're talking about. And I just wonder if, as you say, could we see him sit on the bench for this one? And, we've spoken about before about kind of filling a team with a little bit of height to give us a bit of presence from set pieces. You could put Killian Phillips in that little bit more of a forward role, that attacking midfielder role, which I think we saw in that game at Pataudry. And you could then put Dante Polvara and Connor Barron alongside each other in the centre. And then we've got that bit of height and presence. Barron does his best to be that ball-winning midfielder and looking to distribute. And you've just got kind of Polvara in that free role. And of course, big game Dante, this is the biggest game he's going to play in between now and the end of the season, and obviously unless we get to the final.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd probably be inclined to go with that. And whether I would start Hoylett on the right or if I go with McGrath, I'd probably go with McGrath personally. Again, Hoylett's probably a good option to have coming off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if we can maybe hold that sort of couple of creative sparks in Clarkson and Hoylett, might serve us well as legs tired and gaps get bigger. I think as well, we've seen Clarkson coming off the bench around about the hour mark before. And as Miovski and Duke begin to tire, he then leads the press. If he's coming on in the 10 to then really sort of pressure Celtic if the game's still, within our reach or still, tight enough, or maybe we're winning 4-0, who knows. But no, I think that midfield three of Barron and Phillips would probably be my preference.
Yeah, I think the midfield for us is going to be the biggest kind of key to the weekend's game. Of course, Rio Hatate's come back into the Celtic side, and we know what influence he can have. Callum McGregor still working his way back to full fitness, so they can take off Rio Hatate and chuck on Callum McGregor. We can, depending obviously on our starting lineup, you take off Connor Barron and chuck on Dante Polvara. No disrespect, but you've got two different levels. And again, you just look at the kind of our substitutions at the weekend, the depth that Celtic can call on off their bench into positions like the wing. We're relying on Ryan Duncan right now. It shows the gap and kind of what we're up against, but it's a one-off game. We've done it before to Celtic in the Scottish Cup, albeit not at this stage and not at this venue, but we've done it with far less quality in our squad. No offense to that team from the 07-08 season. But look, a one-off Scottish Cup game, and I saw someone compare this to the, games gone by when a few seasons ago, the Lewis Ferguson game at Hampden against Rangers. We were going down with poor ticket sales. Nobody gave us a chance. We were written off. Rangers were pretty much in the final as everyone was concerned. We turned up, shit-fested our way to a 1-0 win and got ourselves to the final. Could we see history repeat ourselves, or am I clutching at every straw possible here?
But the thing is, I think that's the mentality, and I mean, we speak about it all the time. Being Aberdeen, that's the mentality I think we've really got to take into these games. Is the squad's got to know everybody's against you from minute one. You've got nothing to lose in this scenario. No one's expecting you to come out with anything. Just go and prove them all wrong. And with the way the media has been recently, with a lot of I'll say the Northern Bloc, ourselves in Dundee and whatnot. It'd be nice to just get one up the Central Belt, and really get one around the media as well.
Yeah, it would. And PGL Tuna, or Jack McKenzie, as we refer to him on this podcast, saying Jack McKenzie, first goal scorer, 1-0 Aberdeen. Well, I don't care who the fuck scores. If it was 1-0 Aberdeen come full time, we would absolutely take it. And Ewan Grant saying magic of the cup, about time we were on the right side of that. Saw it, of course, in the previous round against Kilmarnock, maybe the luck finally kind of going our way this season. We've certainly seen it in the cup performances, that we've kind of finally got a bit of the rub of the green, and it would be nice to have that at the weekend as well. Look, we all know what to expect from Celtic. I'm not going to kind of sit here and go through player by player, but you know what the likes of Kyogo can produce. I still think for me their defence isn't as good as everyone's making out, despite, like us, they've stopped conceding silly goals. You just need to look at how Rangers got at them in the second 45 of that Old Firm game to know that they are still gettable. But I think what you say is not only us as fans can go down there with belief, we've got to have the players having that mentality that they can go out and win that game. They have to believe they can win that game. They have to believe they're as good as Celtic. There's no reason why they shouldn't be believing that. It's a one-off game. You're 90 minutes away from a second cup final this season. Just go out there, put everything on the line, forget your last game at Hampden, go and prove to us that was just really poor management, and show us that you're giving everything. And those of us that are there at Hampden, we will give everything to you from the stands, and we'll be fully behind you for that 90 minutes. So, if we go out and die trying, you'll have our full respect. Just please don't fucking lie down and get your tummies tickled.
100%, 100%.
I think that's it. It's all we want, and hopefully next week we're sitting here talking about being in a Scottish Cup final. And look, folk might think that's stupid us saying that, but in the cup, literally anything can happen. So we'll see what happens from that.
Definitely. I think, like you say, we just want the effort to be there. If the effort's there, no one will complain. I think it's it's so often we see ourselves against the likes of Celtic and even going to Hampden and just not having that belief, reverting to just long ball, and not even try to play a semblance of football. Just a bit of effort, and and I'll be happy.
We don't take much to be pleased, do we, Phil?
No, I'm an easy pleaser.
Well, hopefully you're easy pleased come the weekend, and we're sitting here speaking positively about the performance and result, of course, because just because we've played well doesn't necessarily mean we win the game. But it'd be great to be speaking about reaching a Scottish Cup final. If there is no managerial appointment, the next episode will be next Monday, reacting to the Scottish Cup semi-final and those post-split fixture announcements. So can't tell you who I'm previewing on the next episode as yet. If there is to be an announcement this week, we will do our best to get an episode out before the semi-final, some extra content for you to listen to for those that are tuning in on audio on your way to Hampden this weekend. And as I said, we'll do our best to get Callum on the show for that one. But Phil, thanks as ever for joining me on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure as always.
It is always a pleasure. And if you have enjoyed this episode, please do leave a like on the video, leave a rating wherever you're listening, leave a review, leave a comment on the comments box. And remember to subscribe if you're watching, follow us on your audio platform of choice as well. And until next time, come on, you Reds!